Hello and welcome to my channel Against All Odds. Today I'm going to tell you how Julia and I met. It was the weekend when my phone rang and it was my little brother calling. He was at a party and had met Julia there. He wanted to introduce her to me, saying, "Hey Miguel, come over to the party. I've met this really beautiful woman." But I turned him down. Around midnight, while I was already in bed, my phone rang again. Once again, it was my brother, this time already a bit tipsy, urging me to come to the party. But I turned him down again. However, the next day I got curious. Who was this person my brother wanted to introduce me to? Back then, I checked on the platform where Kent went to see who it was. Yes, shortly after that, Julia was also on my page and apparently curious about me too. But soon after, I went on vacation to Spain with my parents. That's when Julia and I first got in touch. We talked on the phone. And then we talked on the phone more and more. At that time, the weather in Spain wasn't that great either. So I asked my parents to cut the vacation short and go home. There was nothing standing in the way of that. We ended our vacation a few days early and drove home. Of course, I was very excited. We drove through the night. The next day, we arrived in Germany. I was dead tired. But I took a shower, got ready, and drove to Idstein to see Julia. I rang her doorbell downstairs. The door opened downstairs. I went up to the first floor, rang the bell again, and Julia opened the door. Wow. Julia was standing in front of me. Back then, she was wearing heels, tights, a skirt, and a great top. "Julia, you really looked amazing." I was very impressed. Yes, I went inside to see Julia, and we got to know each other. Yes, it was a very beautiful day, and a wonderful time began. Yes, since the very first day, we've basically lived together. At first, I spent a few nights at her place. Then we already went on our first vacation together. Back then, Julia was from Ukraine. I said, "Come on, I'll show you a bit of German history." So we went to Eisenach, to the Wartburg. That's where Martin Luther translated the Bible. There I showed her the famous ink stain. Yes, that was our first vacation. After that, I said to Julia, "Come on, let's cancel your apartment here. Move in with me and save yourself the rent for now." At that time, I was still living with my parents. I had my own apartment there. So Julia moved in with me, and then everything happened really quickly. Then I said, "Come on, let's look for our own house together." Yes, our search began. In June 2009, on June 30th, we signed the purchase contract for our house together. The planning continued. Do we want a child? Yes. All right, Julia stopped taking the pill. It didn't take long and Julia got pregnant. Yes, I'm a bit conservative too. A wedding goes along with a house and a child. Here, I made a special marriage proposal to Julia. I had a plate made for her, which you can see in the picture below. I took it to the Italian restaurant and asked them to serve Julia's pizza on it when she ordered her pizza. Yes, as I said, so it was done. We went to the Italian restaurant in the evening. The pizza came on the plate. Julia ate the pizza. The plate became emptier and emptier. I kept having to smile a little. Julia asked, "What's going on?" I said, "Nothing's wrong." The Italian in the back looked at me with his eyes as if to say, "And what's happening?" I let him know she still hadn't noticed. Yes, the pizza was finished. The plate was empty. Julia picked up the napkin next to the plate. She dabbed her mouth and placed the napkin on the plate. Haha, of course I had to laugh even more. Julia asked, "What's going on?" I said, "Julia, just look at the plate." Julia looked at the plate. "Yeah, and what?" "Why don't you take the napkin away?" Julia took the napkin away, looked at the plate, looked back at me and said, "What's going on?" I said, "Now please look closely." Julia looked at the plate. Suddenly, her head shot up, a big smile spread across her face, and then it happened. The yes. So the marriage proposal was accepted. Julia and I then planned to get married in December 2009 to get married. But unfortunately, things turned out differently. On November 16th, 2009, Julia had a serious car accident. At the time, she was 7 weeks pregnant. What happened next, what injuries she sustained in the accident, and what prognosis I received, I'll tell you all about it in my next video. Tune in.